He should have been fired immediately. There shouldn't have even been a discussion. This is
Correct,
beyond question a fireable offense for anyone whose job it is to maintain objectivity and to be trusted by the entire country, not just half of it. As a result, Terry Moran has been suspended pending further evaluation from an ABC News spokesperson. Suspended, not fired. No apology to Stephen Miller, nor to President Trump from either Moran or ABC, because let's face it, they all agree and are secretly applauding what he wrote.
You know, Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk are in full meltdown mode again. This time over what veteran ABC News correspondent Terry Moran said about Donald Trump and Stephen Miller. On social media, Terry remarked that Trump thrives on glorification and Stephen Miller, well, his messaging has long drawn scrutiny. Many in MAGA circles are calling it bias. Others are firm in the belief that a seasoned journalist was giving honest analysis in the public interest.
At its fundamental core, the journalists are activists. They're not trying to explore truth. They're not trying to challenge authority. These are activists.
His own hatred, it's his TDS right there, which I can see all over him. It's eating him up.
Absolutely.
And he's projecting it or transferring it onto Stephen Miller.
You know, it's one thing for conservative commentators to push back. But when the Trump campaign does something else through spokesperson Carolyn Leavitt demanding a suspension, well, that shifts the conversation. It raises real concerns about political pressure and whether newsrooms feel free to report without interference. If journalists are penalized for calling out patterns in public behavior, where does that leave press freedom?
Well, ABC is going to have to answer for what their, again, so-called journalist put out on Twitter in the wee hours of the night, calling Stephen Miller vile. They said that President Trump is a world-class hater. And this is, again, coming from someone who is supposed to be an unbiased and professional journalist. This is unacceptable and unhinged rhetoric coming from someone who works at a major television network. But I think this speaks to the distrust that the American public have in the legacy media. We will continue to keep or hold journalists accountable. All we're asking for is truth and transparency. Hopefully, this journalist will either be suspended or terminated. You cannot go on these unhinged rants against administration officials and the President of the United States.
ABC News' decision to suspend Moran came within an hour of the campaign's demand. That speed raised eyebrows. It really did. Not just over the tweet itself, but over what it says about internal newsroom priorities. The concern isn't about whether journalists should be held to standards, held accountable. The concern is whether fear of backlash is starting to replace editorial independence. And when that happens, public trust suffers. Figures like J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller quickly stepped in to reframe the narrative, of course, labeling Moran as extreme or unprofessional. But it's worth noting Stephen Miller's political influence, particularly around immigration and identity, has always prompted debate, big time. Reporting on those dynamics is not bias, it's context, and honest journalism will always include difficult conversations.
They looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute over that.
Wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped. So let me
That was Photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. But I picked you, Terry. But you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because it's fake news.
You know, this moment goes beyond one reporter. It's bigger than that. It's a reminder of how fragile journalistic independence can become in a high-stakes political environment. If newsroom decisions are driven by which voices shout the loudest, we risk creating a chilling effect.
seal the border, deport all the illegals. Now, that's the short answer, right? You get in, you have two policy objectives that you proceed with utter determination on. Seal the border, no illegals in, everyone here goes out. That's very straightforward. In terms of the policy sets to accomplish this, as President Trump showed in his first term, it's a series of interlocking domestic and foreign policies to accomplish this goal. You would establish large-scale staging grounds for removal flights. So you grab illegal immigrants and then you move them to the staging grounds, and that's where the planes are waiting for federal law enforcement to then move those illegals home. You deputize the National Guard to carry out immigration enforcement, and then you also deploy the military to the southern border, not just with a mission to observe, but with an impedance and denial mission. In other words, you reassert the fundamental constitutional principle that you don't have a right to enter into our sovereign territory, to even request the asylum claim. The military has the right to establish a fortress position on the border and to say no one can cross here at all. And so you have a party and a president and a left-wing movement in this country that is so determined to bring illegal aliens in for electoral votes, for congressional seats, to make them citizens, to increase and make permanent their political power, they are willing to even risk multiple terrorist attacks on this country. He took head on the catastrophe of mass, unlimited illegal immigration that was turning us into a failed third world state and achieved the lowest level of illegal immigration in recorded history without even a close second. It is a sad reflection on the state of our media and many of the outlets represented in this room that you obsessively try to shill for this MS-13 terrorist. Well, no coverage occurred in your papers about any of the Americans that were raped and tortured and murdered by the illegals that Biden was importing into our country.
For many viewers, Moran's post was not an outrage. It was a reality check. And the conversation now isn't just about what he said. It's about whether our institutions will stand by the people they said we should trust to tell us the truth.